Welcome back to the virtual compound, which today we could say the virtual library. Today's episode is all about books, our love for them, thoughts on them, and some recommendations for the summer. I'm Amelia.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Lacey. It is 5:31 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon in Southern California.
It is 8:31 p.m. on the same day that Lacey just said because I wasn't paying any attention and I have totally forgotten the time.
It's 9:32 now in the morning on Monday in Japan.
Hey, look, all of our clocks are actually correct. They're actually showing. Mine now says 8:32 also. That's good. And they don't
we
tick.
are
The most important.
We are avid readers. We all love books, and one of the many pillars of our friendship is that we all favor fiction. We love books, but within that genre, there are a number of preferences. We have some that we share, some that we don't. So we are gonna kind of get into that today and have some recommendations for you. So, genre preference.
Fiction.
It's pretty much fiction.
Fiction, basically, all around.
Fiction. It depends on why I'm reading, I guess. If I'm reading for purely entertainment, nonfiction does not entertain me, really.
No.
Right.
If I'm reading to learn and grow as a person or make my mind better, then nonfiction. But if it's a choice, I will pick up fiction more often.
I'm the same way. I like fiction, but I do like sciencey books as well. I mean, I've recommended a few of those nonfiction, and now that my husband's retired, I actually can read some of the military biographies, autobiographies that I always wanted to and was curious about, but it was too fresh, too real that I needed to wait. So reading those, I do find entertainment.
Well, even right now, I can't read the fiction versions of that. So we had this discussion. There's a book series that I don't think either of us is actually discussing today, Iron Flame and Fourth Wing. But that's because we got so in depth that we are working on a whole in the other segment for that. But I don't think I can read any of Rebecca Yaros's other books right now. The majority of them, she was writing during a time that was very volatile, but she was living through it, and so that was a great outlet for her. But I'm like, I can't live where you were. I can't do it. So unfortunately, as much as I want to and they get praise, I'm like, those are gonna have to wait a solid 6 years or more before I can read most of those books. But
when they're too close to home, it's really rough. But I like the sciencey and the learning about the body. That's my favorite. So that is still entertainment for me.
I let Wyatt do the nonfiction and then tell me which nonfiction I need to read, which he did. And it is the only reason that I have one nonfiction book listed later. And it was slightly begrudgingly, but it's a really good book. I don't mind nonfiction. When I go nonfiction, I tend to do kind of autobiographies, I guess. Regardless of how you feel about him, I like Bill O'Reilly's books on the historical various killing of whoever's.
Did you read Killing Jesus?
Yes, we did that one when we were driving back and forth for the summer sometime. And then I just recently, it's been on my list for years, but I just did Killing Lincoln last month before. That one was really good. And I enjoy those. That's the kind of, when it comes to nonfiction, I tend to really like that. However,
historical.
Yeah. Amelia, I had started Love and Respect a long time ago, and I couldn't get into it. And Amelia was like, you have to get into it. And I'm really glad that I did. That is not on my list, but it is a nonfiction that I would recommend for people. That is actually a really good one.
It is.
I wrote it down.
It starts off
It doesn't start great, which was my problem. It really doesn't.
It's not like it's written from a Christian perspective. Obviously, it's like a marriage book, and it's written by like a really famous Christian like guy who writes
and wife
like parenting and marriage books and stuff. But it starts off, and the feminist in me is like,
oh yeah,
excuse.
Yeah. Very much so.
No.
Yeah. And I listened to it. Did you read it or did you listen to it?
I read it.
So
and my friend was like, "You got to keep going," and I was like, "Absolutely not." And she's like, "Do it," and so I did, and then
it was worth it.
Get better.
It does.
It's one of those like convicting books where you're like, but the first part is not like you don't want to stop because you're like convicted. You want to stop because he's like a misogynist.
Yes, like, but he's not. But
he's not. But that's how it like
100% comes across. Yeah.
So I'm like not finishing that.
It really was, and we're not doing maybe the greatest idea of like selling this, but just push past it. Like whether you are the audiobook, he reads it, and he is not a bad narrator. It's just that then you know that he is the author and he is reading it, and you feel those feelings as a woman. But that's part of the reason to read it, is to then eventually see where he's coming from, and you do, and it makes sense. But you have to get past that. And similarly, it's something that the guys should read too, because you just realize the differences. Anyway, that's kind of how I end up going with my nonfiction. It's very few and far between. It's like one for every 35 fiction books or more.
Wow. I mean, I was the same way for a long time, but getting into historical fiction and then nonfiction helped me like bridge the gap and get into more like nonfiction books as well. But like when we're talking fiction, what genre within fiction do you really prefer? Anything?
I will read almost anything. I don't love like murder books because I like have like a way overactive imagination and I can turn anything into a serial killer.
Same.
But I just don't love them, and I don't love like I'm such a child. I don't love gore and like it's one of the many reasons why I couldn't get into Game of Thrones. That series defeated me because I just
too much.
Like I needed like I literally had to go on to Pinterest and like pull up like a Game of Thrones like character chart because I like truly could not keep track of like who was who and why and like to whom they were related.
Yeah.
And all the things. And I was like, this is like a research project now and it's not fun anymore. Because I don't want to like have to have like a companion guide in order to read a book.
Right.
And it's also like kind of just bloody and gory for like I don't know, people love those books, but I just don't like that. We all know how I feel about Court of Thorn and Roses. Books like that. But I'll read it.
Right. Now, for you, is it, obviously there's the spice, is it fairy in general that you are not a big fan of? Or is it the spice and the fairy, or just the spice, or like which part of that is it not?
It's the spice in general I don't like.
Right.
I think it's unnecessary. And then I don't mind fairy books. Like I love a good fantasy, you know? But also like the characters in that book, like she should have ended it at the second book or like halfway through the third. The second. She should have ended it at the second book because now I'm just like I'm so over the characters. Right. So yeah. I think it's also like when you just get over.
I do that with some
characters, but I don't mind fairies. I like fantasy. Like I like it. I'm here for it. I'm down. But
sometimes it goes too far.
We take it too far, and I'm like, I don't got it.
16 books too far, but we'll see.
There's a lot of fairies.
There's a lot of fairies.
People turn into fairies and out of fairies, and it's a whole thing, and I'm over it.
All right. There you go. Okay. So I am obviously fiction, but for me, I've realized as I was going through my books that I need like a touch of romance. It doesn't have to be spice. Like it's just I tend to be drawn to like a touch of romance, even if all it is an attraction, and it takes like 5 books in a series before anything comes out of that. For some reason, that's like just something that tends to fall in there. Um, and but I like anything like that. I love a cozy mystery, so I'm with you, Amelia. I am not a like murder, true crime style type of person, fiction or nonfiction, but I do love like cozy mysteries where you've got maybe romance, not like spicy romance, but like maybe an attraction in there, but there is some sleuthing going on, and yet it's not like crazy gore or anything that's too out there. I've realized a lot of
Yeah.
my things fall that way, but I do like fantasy paranormal, not in crazy paranormal, um, just something along those lines. And I, in general, was going through and trying to give my list and realized I have a lot of series. I like a series. I like to live, if it's a book I really I like to live in the world as long as the series stays good. If it turns
Yeah.
into like what Amelia is saying, and there are a few that I've been just over it, I get to a certain point and I'm like, never mind. Either I kept going hoping it would pick up, or I kept going and then realized that it just kind of like got
Yeah.
too much or became stale, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't anymore. This is the end.
Yeah. Like they're trying too hard.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I'm also a sampler. I think I got the like award on both Kindle and Audible that was like, you got the sampler award because I just like
Try
sample
stuff.
all the time.
Mm.
I ended a book today. It was one I'd listened to before, but I just wanted to listen to it again. And I was like, let's just sample this next one while I'm making dinner. Like
Yeah.
I do
I
that.
can't because if I start it, I have to finish it.
I am
So
very much that way,
I
but I've
used to be
gotten
that
better.
way. But then I realized there are so many books that I want to read, and I don't want to waste my
Hmm.
time on books that
Yeah.
are not going to bring me like if I can't actually tell it thank you for your service and I'm like, nope, we're just gonna drop kick you out the door. Not going there.
Yeah. I've done that a few times with a few books. I'm a book hoarder. Like I will literally buy books if I like the author, if it looks compelling. I've
Mhm.
gotten much better in recent years. And I haven't bought any books that I've really liked in like the Libby app, and I've read them, borrowed them, and whatever. I haven't actually bought any books in a long time, and I've been going to the library a lot more. But there are like a list of books that I want to buy, um, only because I know I'm going to read them again.
Yeah.
And I think the Fourth Wing and Iron Flame are definitely those books. They are really good.
100%. Yes.
Um,
I need them in
there are some
all
really great, yeah,
all
there are some
things.
really good books. But when I was younger, I read like Stephen King, and I just thought he was like a really interesting writer. But as I've gotten older, I can't even do scary movies anymore. I could do a psychological thriller, but it can't be like you said, like super gory, super graphic. I don't really care for spicy books. I usually skip over that. Um, I can't do fairy and fantasy though. I don't know what it is. Like I think it's just completely so far out of the realm that that's why it's so important for me to be like, no, Fourth Wing and Iron Flame are not fantasy books. They're not. They just have dragons, but there's no fantasy.
There's no fish. Sure. You just remind yourself of that, Lacey. Sure.
But
The
like
dragons and the
they
use of
don't.
magic, and that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Uh-huh.
they like because like Harry Potter, same thing. Like I wouldn't in my mind, like I don't really classify that as fantasy. So I guess it's like the fairy stuff. I'm not like I don't know the
And
fairies with wings and things like that. But I read like the Land of Stories with my kids, and that was fun. And but it's a children's book. And then there was another like young adult series that was about like fae, but it wasn't like, winged fairies and all that. I don't know. I don't.
So you just don't like fairies.
she doesn't like
I just don't like
fairies.
fairies. I guess that's what it is. But
I mean, Amelia did
um,
say the wings didn't do it for her, but apparently they don't
exactly.
do it for you in any realm whatsoever.
No, no, it's weird, but no, I really have gotten in, like, and I mean, I've always been interested in anatomy and the human body. All I ever wanted to be was a mom, and everything about being a mom and having children and birth and pregnancy and labor, it all fascinated me. So I
Mhm.
read a ton of books on that, and I still do. Like one of the books I'm recommending today, um, is definitely on that track. But I like the whodunits, but again, it can't be graphic. I like to see if I can figure out who did it and what's happening. It's a puzzle. I'm a big puzzle person, and so that's what those mystery books are for me, is just a giant puzzle. But I haven't found anything that really like freaked me out. Anyway, so now that we've kind of talked about our genres, things that we kind of like, we can talk about books that we love. And when I was thinking about that, like, obviously there are a million books, but I think it's the books we like gravitate towards again and again.
Amelia, do you have books or a genre, a specific niche? Do you have a niche that you'd gravitate toward?
No.
Okay.
I don't know. I read to like make my like purely for entertainment, and
Yes.
I really like, I'm an adult. I will read books that have like sad endings and stuff like that.
I
And that,
will,
like,
but I don't want to.
More like adult themes. I'm not talking about like, spicy anything. Right. Just like, that have more adult content, something that like, would bore a 13-year-old.
Right.
But I really, really like books that like have the like everyone has a happy ending and they like end really well, and like it that I love that, because like I am reading books to like entertain myself, and I don't want it to be like there's a cliffhanger,
right?
Unless there's like the next book, it's a series we're talking about or whatever. But like I want it all to end happily. Yes. I want them to be in love, and I want everything to work out for everyone in the book.
Yes. I'm right there with you.
So no, like I guess kind of those books is what I like want out of books, and like if I can be guaranteed a happy ending, I'll probably pick it up and read it.
That's why I don't tend to go for contemporary romance, but I will go with it when I know that I want like standalone ones, because they're going to end that way. Like they may have the middle themes are what I may or may not like, depending on what it is that they have to like go through or what their background is, but you also know that they're going to follow a certain path.
So I've been reading, and these are like the cheesiest books, and I love them.
I love cheesy.
Like purely like escapism and like entertainment, and they're literally the cheesiest books, at times predictable. But you know what? I've never written a book, so I'm not gonna like. I really don't like criticizing any authors,
right?
Even when I like really hate the book, because like
they wrote a book.
They made a book and they published it.
Yeah,
and like that's a feat in and of itself. And as much as I don't hate them. As much as I don't like A Court of Thorn and Roses, like she wrote a book and like developed a world and this whole thing, and that's really cool, right?
Yeah.
So all that to say, these books are very cheesy, but they're like Christian romance books, and the authors Sarah Sundin and Sally Britton, and Sarah Sundin kind of focuses on like World War II stuff. So they're like historical fiction Christian romance books, and they're really ridiculously cheesy. Always have a happy ending. There's 3 books in all the series.
I love it.
Like, they have good moral values. I don't feel like I've just like read something X-rated,
Yeah.
And then Sally Britton is the like Regency romance Christian books as well.
Nice. Oh, Regency era too?
What?
Regency era?
I like Regency era a lot, yeah. Easy to read, and that's so that's what I've been trying to like read books that are like morally good for me. You know, as I read Court of Thorn and Roses. But I kind of solidified the fact that I should probably read books that have like some sort of like moral value, a little bit. So yeah, I don't know if that really answers your question.
I mean,
it falls along my recommendation and like what I've kind of been picking up this year to like to continue, since I'm just gonna go on a like diatribe right now, I guess. Um, the other books that I read this year were actually in our book club that we do with our Classical Conversations community. Um, and I'm like very, very clearly like one of the only people that like does not pick up nonfiction like very often, because all of these books
Are nonfiction.
are nonfiction.
Yeah.
And I did like them a lot. But it was a struggle to get into some of them because I was like, oh, I don't know. There's no dragons.
There's no escapism, and I mean, I think that's part of like.
This is not a happy ending, and I don't like it.
Right.
Yeah.
So Upstairs at the White House, I think I've recommended before, but I'll say it again. It's one of the White House butlers from, I think he ended at Kennedy. But like Kennedy and like 4 or 5 presidents before, and his like observation, and he mainly focuses on like the wives.
Yeah.
Of the presidents, and that one's really good. I really liked that. And it's not like salacious, and he's not like spilling secrets or anything like that. It's just really cool to like kind of get like a peek behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And The Widow Clicquot, which is about Veuve Clicquot Champagne and how the company got started by this widow in like the 1800s, 17 or 1800s. And Empty Mansions, which is about Huguette Clark and this like wildly, just insanely wealthy woman who was like an absolute hermit, and she just passed away, empty mansions like all over America.
Oh yeah, you were
like,
talking about
kept
that.
Up fully staffed empty mansions, and she lived in a hospital like by choice. It's
so
wild. You have to read it. Her story is insane. And then The Innocents Abroad by Mark Twain. And that's about his travels, around the world. Not around the world, around like Europe and Africa. It's wild. That was wild.
So you have, sorry, I was just going to ask, how long have you been a part of this book club?
This year.
Okay.
Now, had anybody actually read any of these books in the book club?
I had read Upstairs at the White House, and that was my suggestion to the book club, because I very quickly saw that like we were not going to do fiction.
See, and this is why I have problems.
I was in the wrong group.
Yeah.
For fiction. I love all of those women, not fiction people.
Yeah, I have a tough time with book clubs because they either go like strictly nonfiction, and it's not saying that they're not going to find good books, but it's sometimes like if that's not a genre, not even a genre, if whatever the books are a subject matter that I'm not interested in, I'm going to have a really tough time getting through it.
Yeah.
Or they'll go with fictions that are like kind of downers. I knew somebody who was in one recently, and every book that was in it was all these like downers. I'm like, people, you read fake life to bring you down? Like why aren't you reading fake life to bring you up? Like it's up all the time, or like mix them in. I'm not saying they're not good books, but do you do that all the time? Anyway, that's kind of my feelings on book club. I want to be in a book club because, like with the situation with Fourth Wing, I finished that book and I was like, I need somebody to talk to. I need one of you to do this. So Lacey bit the bullet, and then she was like, I'm not going to like this. And then we talked about it for like 2.5 hours, and we're
still talking about
it
I'm
right now.
Actually reading it, not listening to it.
Yeah.
Look, let me finish with my thoughts on book club, and then we can really move on to the whole point of this. Is that they're meh for me. I don't want to read on somebody else's timeline, or if it's like every week we're going to read this much, and we're going to talk about it, or if it's like we're going to read this book in this much time. It's like I'm not going to have that much time this week, so there's that. Right. And also, like, I'm antisocial. I don't really like going and doing things, and like I just there's so much always going on that I don't know. If I'm going to break to make time, it's going to be with the people in my family or the people I'm already close to because I have so little of those opportunities, I guess.
Right.
But audiobooks versus real books. Audiobooks I have now done. I'm listening to like 4 books right now.
Why are you doing that?
Well, I'm actually, if you call that reading, I'm reading like 6 books right now.
Well, I'm not saying that, but like you struggle with audiobooks as it is, so I'm wondering why you're doing so many.
It's 1985, an Animal Farm. Oh. And so I can listen to those while I'm cooking. And
do you see our faces right here? Why are you doing this?
Why are you reading those books?
They're so good.
No, no.
For our kid, like, do you guys not know what's going on in the world right now? Like,
woman,
are you reading them because like your children are reading them and you've like kind of forgotten what it is?
No, I think they need to be exposed to it. I know Emma's read in 1985, and when she was reading it, she was like, "Oh my gosh, Dad, there are so many parallels." And so, like the other teens, I think that it's good for them to listen to it. But again, it's like, am I going to listen to that, or am I going to listen to like news podcasts while I'm cooking? Like, it's one or the other. But so I'm listening to those right now, and I can listen to those, but I don't necessarily retain, which is fine on books like that, or even like some sciencey ones. I was doing audiobook of the science one that I'm really in right now, and I talked about it last week on our fitness one, but I had to stop and get the actual book because I needed like the stats and the details, all the information. And that's what happened with Fourth Wing, like first fiction audiobook that I've listened to that I didn't read before. And now I'm like, Katie, did you know that this thing happened, or that I didn't know this thing because I didn't know. I don't hear it. I didn't understand.
And it's funny,
I don't pay attention
because I literally texted her about it afterwards, like 2.5 weeks after we finished talking about the book in a setting. I was like, here's a theory. And then last week, I no joke, Amelia, she sent me it was like you copied. It was like she took a copy of my text and sent it back to me. I was like, I told you exactly that thing a month ago.
I listened to it. I didn't read it. So I'm a visual person. I have to see it. Like, if I'm listening to something and I've seen it before, I can retain it. And like, okay, I know what's going on. But there are so many names and cities and places in Fourth Wing that it's just like, I don't know the professors' names. I don't know who these students are. Oh, wait, now reading again. I'm like, okay, is this guy the one that's going to die? Or is that, who's he? I don't remember his name. Now, what about this guy? Wait, his name starts with a G. So am I just thinking that he's the same person, or is there a person that I haven't been introduced to yet that is at the end of the book? You know, it's literally the worst. So I don't really do audiobooks. I need the tangible, and I love the way they smell and feel in my hand. I love Barnes and Noble and bookstores for that very reason.
Oh, I love Barnes and Noble and any bookstore. I love them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, rub it in. Go ahead.
Unfortunately, I was so excited to go into a bookstore in Okinawa, and then I walked in and I was like, oh.
You can't go in those.
Never mind.
You're not supposed to go into bookstores in Okinawa. They're banned.
Yeah, rub it in. Go ahead. Rub it in how you get real books. Go ahead. I'll just sit here. It's fine.
Okay. You know what,
You have a big book section at Kadena now. It never used to be that big.
That's true.
There's 3 aisles.
Okay, never mind. I'm not sending you what we were talking about earlier in tomorrow's. I'm just going to go buy you a whole bunch of books. I'm just going to send you that.
Not fine. That's great. I love that. No, they've taken it back down. It's like,
what?
They redid it. Yeah.
You know what? Actually, when we lived there, the first tour, the downstairs where it's now, it's sometimes like, it's the big section where it's sometimes across from Starbucks thing, the big section that has like all the crap in it, and sometimes it's patio furniture. They used to have like a massive book section. It was like 5 or 6 aisles and all along the walls. That was back in 2015 or 14, last time that I know they had it. Yeah. That's really, like, that is awful. But at least, you know, there's
multiple circle back to 1984 and Animal Farm.
I'm gonna chime in after Amelia on this one. Go ahead.
I read those books in high school, and like, you know, everybody reads them in high school. And then I read them again, like, I think because like, high school you and like adult you are two different
Yeah.
yous.
Yeah.
And I read them again, and I understand that there are parallels and things, and that they are classics, and I think that children should read them, or not children, young adults
Young
should
adults.
read them, and like people that have not read them, I believe they should read them. But I think Fahrenheit 451 is better than
Ro
both.
Just read that one.
And
but see, I didn't read those in high school.
Oh, I did.
I was forced to. And
it was
also
miserable.
I was forced to read Lord of the Flies.
Oh, thankfully I did not have to do that one.
I got the Cliff Notes for that one. I totally cheated with that one.
Read that one again as an adult. And my thoughts are like, what? Okay. I do not like those books.
No.
I understand that they should be read and that they are classics and the overall message of them. But like 14, 15-year-old Amelia, when reading those books, because she was in accelerated language arts or like AP whatever, but did like not I'd say a solid like 75% of the messaging was just like because it just you are not in the like as much as you think you're an adult, you are just not in that like headspace.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's a lot of books.
And as much as you
given to teens.
As much as you might
selfish. And I also don't like those books. And also, how the heck are you tandem reading those books?
I know.
Because
not consistently.
I didn't like them. So there's that. And I know people can come for me. It's classic, whatever. I read them still, and I'm going to have my children, like young adults, read them. And I'm going to suggest they read them when they're actual adults and all the things. Like, we're going to read these books. I'm not banning books. We're not doing them, right?
Right.
But tandem?
Yeah.
Why?
I feel like your life is just it's not seeing much happiness out of those. Like
here's sad books.
So I started one. And then, I got distracted. I started another one.
Sad party.
But I'm not doing it consistently enough. Like literally this week for dinner, it's like leftovers every night.
Oh, that was my week.
2 nights. Because last week was like we made a bunch of food and then we had food and then we had a party and like all the things. So like I'm literally not listening to them consistently. But like I picked up one, I started reading it, or turned on one, I started reading it, listening to it, whatever. And then I put the other one on and I was like, wait, was this one I started before? No. So I'm going to have to literally go to the library to get the book, to read the book. Because otherwise I'm going to continue to go back and forth. But before I do that, I'll probably listen to one of them. Like Brody and I we're going to go to Arizona this week. And, the baby and Charlotte are coming too. But we might do one of them, or we might do a different one, do a audiobook. I mean, it's 6 hours. We can get that done really quickly.
Right.
And then do the other one on the way back. But Ayn Rand is another one. Like I've picked them up, I've started reading them, and then I've set them down. And it's just because
I haven't done that one.
So there's Atlas Shrugged, and then there's Fountainhead. And again, they both, and there's one more I can't remember. But they both they're kind of like 1984 and Animal Farm, that they still resonate today. And so, I had it for a second and I forgot it. Anthem's Ayn Rand's other one, I think. And so, anyway, these are just books that I know I need to read, but I can't get into it so much that I put it down and walk away, and then I come back and I have to start it over again. Like I've started it over so many times. And it's because then I'll go find another book. And so that's why I'm reading so many books in tandem. I also have multiple books that Libby was like, hey, it's ready to borrow. And I was like, I'm going to do this all in 21 days for all of these books I've been waiting on.
Oh, goodness. No, I was angry at Animal Farm. 15-year-old Katie was like, throw the book across the room, angry with Animal Farm. And Wyatt bought it on audiobook to re-listen to it this year. Well, I think he got it before, but he has re-listened to it. And I was like, I don't think I can do it without throwing my phone. I don't think I can. pretty sure this is a time of like, let's save some money by not letting Katie listen to this.
I couldn't listen to those books. I would have to read them because I think like listening to it would be too slow.
And I think that might be my problem. Well, I mean, listening at double speed then makes it weird. I don't know.
Listen to double speed messes it up.
To start so many times. Yeah,
it'd still be too slow. It took me like, I want to say it took me like a year and a half to get through Atlas Shrugged because I kept putting it down and being like,
yeah.
But if we want to talk about like books that have to do with our world, one my husband continually recommends to everyone, and like Marines, is Guns, Germs, and Steel.
Ooh,
I read that.
No.
But that sounds.
Geographic and environmental factors led to the rise of certain civilizations. He argues that factors, rather than innate superiority, are responsible for the global distribution of wealth and power.
All right.
I've gotten through half of it, and it is good, but I put it down for like fun books.
Yeah.
So I keep putting that one down a lot because
fun books are easier to read.
Big, and it's also not fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they're that big, I can make it through a fun book that big. Getting through a not fun book that big is much more difficult.
Yes.
Well, and I was going to say that's part of like finding time to read a boring book, finding time to read a fun book. Yeah.
See, that's when sometimes though I'll push the audiobook on it because I know that I could speed it up. It's technically slower because when it's a not fun book, I'm reading it, even with fun books, if I'm reading it, but it's a part of like description, like filler words to get them over the 50,000 words, then I skim it and I sometimes will miss, and I don't even do it consciously. I just like, and then all of a sudden we're down there. And I will do that with not fun books, whereas an audiobook, I can't skip it because I know if I skip ahead 10 seconds, or 30 seconds, I have no idea what I've missed.
Yeah.
So I'll force myself to do them on audiobook for that reason. But
that's a good idea too.
I am strictly an audiobook. Not strictly, that's not true. I am an audiobook person because when I started my Etsy shop, I was doing the same thing over and over and over. And so I needed, like, I was listening to music, but then I started Outlander, and I just got going with audiobooks, and I could make it through a whole day and just, listen and still be able to do what I was like sewing constantly. And I realized that I was getting a lot more stuff done, and I felt better about audiobooks and being able to listen because I was still getting things done around the house, and I could do it while I'm driving. And I do it like now. If Zoe has in her headphones and listening to music, and Lexi's doing something else, I'll put in a headphone and I'll drive while listening to my book, or I'll play it on the car if it's one we're all listening to. Like yard work, running, not always running. I typically need like metal music to like force me through. I'm not one of those RPM people, but I am like, I need the like thumping. But I do audiobooks, but I do need the shelf trophies for my audiobooks.
When did that start? When did you start getting your trophies for your audiobooks?
I think it started kind of in reverse, where I needed the books. I read the books, but then I would get the audiobooks once I was interested. Outlander, though I would actually have to say it was Outlander. Yeah.
Okay.
Because, and I have all of those, and I have some of the first covers from the 90s for some of her originals. So I have some of them in four different forms. I have the audio, the Kindle, and two physical books. Depending on which cover I have for them. But it doesn't work for the entire series because the newer ones, she doesn't have like ones that match the 90s. But those were easier for me to listen to because the words, it's written the way that they talk. So that's one of those where, when you read it and the words are written in whatever accent to make it you see what you're hearing or what you would be hearing, what they're saying. And so it was easier to listen to Davina Porter read out the names and say everything. I sent you guys that one thing of like, I know how to say their names and you don't. Except for one name, which everybody got weird and got wrong until the show came out. But that's when it started. And so I have the list of my like wish list on my audios and some on Kindle, but I have more of a list to buy books of these are the books that I need to own to go with my audiobooks. Like I love these books so much that I need to see them and I need people to see them because on my phone I've got 300 books on this thing, but nobody sees that. Like nobody sees that. And it's just like,
if I'm going to spend money on a book, I need to sit down and read it. Like now, like I'm a book hoarder and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get to that eventually. I'm definitely going to read that. But now I'm at the point where it's like, oh no, I need to have time to read it before I'm going to buy that. But I mean, but I get it. I get needing the books.
No, yeah. So. For anybody who's listening, if you need gift ideas for me, I will send you the list of my bookshelf of my shelf trophies that are needed to fill out my custom bookshelf that Wyatt made me in this house. I've got my actual library going on, and it is missing so many books, so many. Yeah, I love my audiobooks, but a narrator will make or break a book for me. Like there are definitely times that I'll make it partway through a book and I'll be like, it was okay, and then realize that like the storyline was actually probably really good, but the narrator was just
dry.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah.
I've got certain narrators that I will listen to the book that they are narrating 90 to 95% of the time, unless it's like a genre I really don't like, simply because I love the way that they narrate books. Amelia, I could ramble on this forever. Are you an audiobook or a book?
Depends.
How do you make the choice?
I'd rather read it, but if it's like appropriate for my children, I'll listen to it. And if I don't have time, but also like certain narrators' voices really, really annoy me. So I'll read it because they annoy me. And even if they are like pronouncing the words correctly or whatever, I'd rather like. Sometimes I don't like how the author has like pronounced something, and I like what I've come up with in my head better. And it annoys me to hear like the correct one because I'm like, I don't like that.
I don't like it.
I'd rather read a book than listen to a book.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to be able to hold the book. Honestly, I want to be able to hold the book while someone is reading it and I'm still getting housework done. It doesn't work out that way, but that's kind of how I feel about my books in all
I mean, like
stages.
In a perfect world, I would read all of my books, but I have 2 children and homeschool them.
Yes. Yeah.
And like a husband and a house and a dog.
And a physical body that you also want to like move and keep active and it's just all of the things.
If I could lay in a hammock all day and read every day, that'd be the life.
Yeah.
But I also
I want something to hold my book too. Like I want to read it and have something hold my book, and then I just have to like.
Have you seen those Kindle holders with like you can get the little remote too, and it's like the girls who are like, I know, right? We need like. Yes. No, I'm there with you. I want the physical book. Like I am reading some on Kindle because that's easier for me when I have to be in Annapolis with the girls for 2.5 hours plus the hour-long drive. I don't have to have the audiobook when I get there. I will be happy to sit there and read, but it's going to be easier for me to do it on my phone than to tote around because I'm terrified of damaging my books. I love my books and I will read them, but if I have to put them in a bag and then my children are the ones in charge of moving my bag around, it's not going to go well. And so instead they get read in the house, or I'll carry the little paperback. Like I love here's the exception. Here's my exception. Christmas romance collection. Not like romance, but Christmas collections. When you get those like Regency style, I don't care if they have like there's a romance, but they don't need to have any spice in them. You know, like Christmas collection little paperback books that you get like 3 to 5 books or stories in a book, I am a sucker for those things. And I think it's just because I love Christmas and you know that they're going to end well. And so I just go along with those. I want those in paper form, though. Like, I don't want to listen to those. I actually want to read them. I don't know why that is. I had my cousin, she was like, "What do you want for Christmas?" It's like, "I want you to go to Walmart and find me all of the Christmas, like, collection books and send them." And she did. She wrapped each one of them and she sent them to me. It was great. I loved it. And I kept them. They're now on my trophy, on my shelves. But they're such my trophies.
So if you had like a metal case with a clasp on it that had like cushioning inside for your books, then would you take your books out and like in your bag to take places to read?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I would do that.
Let's see if we can get on that.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Well, we've gone pretty deep into this, so this is going to take probably a big chunk of time. But without giving too much away.
Okay.
What are your summer recommendations?
So I have 5. And this is when I realized how much I like a series, was when I was going through this. Originally, we said that this was going to be 3, and I was having a really hard time with 3. And I actually have 4 and then a nonfiction because it's different. But and this was tough. But these are my summer. We will say this. This is my summer recommendations because for me, for summer, it's like mostly lighthearted things, right? Like it's vacation. You want to live that way. So I have other ones for other times of the year. For a summer, I start with the Royal Spyness series by Rhys Bowen. Rhys is Rhys. And you can read or audio. Either of those work really well with this one. And they're fun. They're set in during the Depression, and they are cozy mysteries. So there is a death. It's nothing gruesome, and it follows this woman who is technically, I think, at the time, 32nd in the line for. I think I've talked about this series actually before, and she has to like solve. Well, she doesn't have to, but she ends up solving these murders or these events that happen. And I highly recommend those. She has other series, but this is the one that I like the most. Then there's the Guild Codex series. She has a couple of series technically, by Annette Marie, but there's a couple of spin-off series within this one. The Guild Codex Spellbound is the original series, and it's quite a few books long, but that one is a real life fantasy. I don't know, paranormal sort of. So it's people who have magic in some form, but they are in Canada. And except for the main girl, Tori, she does not have any type of magic or powers or anything at all. She doesn't have anything, but she somehow manages to get a job at a bar of a guild of people who can wield all of these like crazy things like fire and wind and electricity and all this stuff. And it's cool. It's a long, it all ends up in a big climax after many books, but it's really good. And there is no spice to the Royal Spyness. There is no spice until the last book of this series is really the only time that you like get that. So, but there is language, so it's not one that you want to listen to around kids. It's not a lot, but it pops in every once in a while, and you're like, "Whoops, sorry, children. I thought that was going to be safe, and then there was that word." But she's a very good writer across all the things. So Guild Codex Spellbound. The Pink Carnation series I ran across by accident when I picked up a book in the like the paperbacks at Christmas time where it was like last minute gifts. I was like, that cover looks cool. I'm going to grab that one. And each book is technically a standalone, but they also run for the whole series, and it's 12 books. I've got my favorites through there, but it's Pink Carnation series by Lauren Willig. I gave it a 1 chili spice. There is always at least one scene in every book, but you can usually skip that scene. Like just skim through it or push through past it. Rarely is there going to be like the end of it, something might happen at the end of it, but not in the middle. So you could like skim through and move past. But those are good. They happen during the Napoleonic Wars. And it is about kind of the idea It's a modern day and Napoleonic time frame happening at the same time, because it's somebody who's in college and is researching the Pink Carnation, who was a secret service like spy for the British, but nobody ever knew who it ended up being. And she's researching who that could be at the same time that you're finding out what is actually happening during the time frames that she's talking about. I'm not probably selling that quite right, but it is a combination of a historical fiction and a modern telling. Okay. It's really great. Then Sweet Cheeks, which is the one that I finished today. This is definite spice. You could skip through all the spices, but there's definitely spice here. I love it because I think it's hysterical. I just think it's funny. Okay. It's a girl who started a cupcake shop right after she left her fiance, who was a total loser. But her heart has always been with this guy who is now like an Oscar-winning actor. Mm-hmm. And she ends up being invited to her ex-fiance's wedding, and her brother kind of like finagles it so that the guy who left her before, who is now the actor, comes back and maybe tries to talk her into going to the wedding to show the fiance what basically like that she's better than him, and because she can move on without him. I think it's hysterical. It's a great one to listen to or to read because Andi Arndt is a fantastic narrator and she just has great comedic timing. And then my last one is my nonfiction, and it is very apropos for this year specifically. It is called The Bill of Obligations by Richard Haass, Haass. And it is about basically the obligation we have as citizens to know about so many things that pertain to generally government, your voting, your rights. Yeah. What is an obligation? What is your rights? So, like the difference between the Bill of Rights and the Bill of Obligations, and what we should actually be obligated as citizens to be living up to and to do in order for our democracy to work. It is a great. He's very good at trying to not take sides, except in situations in which an event has threatened the stance of our country or the health of our country rather than as an individual. So I highly recommend everybody read that this year before elections, just so that you get it, like, understand how important election time is and how important voting and making yourself be a citizen of a country and really worthy of that.
Yeah. Those are good.
I have so many more. I have so many.
I have access to your list, but I still wrote them down.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a lot of books, and that's, I think, the biggest reason for our recommendations. Like, I chose 2 fiction shares. The first one is the Great Library series by Rachel Caine, Caine. The first book is called Ink and Bone. I randomly found that one night when I was just looking for something to read to fall asleep. And it's all about if the library at Alexandria had not burned down, and if the scholars that were in charge of books were in charge of knowledge. And it's phenomenal when you think about how powerful information is, and when you give the power to others to control what you have access to, how that changes things and how it changes a society. So you start reading it, and I don't remember if there's a date when you start reading it, but you're like, okay, like 1800s, and no, it's set in 2025. And so it's really well written. I've only finished the first 3 books. I think there are 2 more that are on my to read list, but phenomenal series, especially if I don't think there is any spice at all. There's like some love interest. There might be some language. It's more for probably a young adult or like a much older teen, or, adults, but it's a really cool premise, and it was really well done. I'm reading Ink and Bone right now because
along with all of your other ones,
along with all my other ones, because it's just so well done.
Yeah.
The other one I wanted to share. So I read It Girl by Ruth Ware. I don't know why. I was just like, yeah, sure, why not? I was red lighting one night and I was like, yeah, I'm going to read this book. It's available now. And it was really slow getting going, but it threw me off. I was surprised by the ending, and that is rare.
Yeah.
So it's darker. It's about the murder of an it girl and the effects on her roommate and friends that were, because it happened when she was in college, years later, and it flashes back and forth. But it's really well done, and it reminded me a little bit, and we talked about this at one point, of Gone Girl.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked it better. Gone Girl disappointed me. I was not impressed. I didn't think it was well done. The ending was just disappointing and
yeah,
it was meh in my opinion. But It Girl was good.
Okay.
So those are my 2 fiction, and then I went nonfiction. I actually have 3, but I'm going to be quick because I'm reading one of them, which is Mom Jeans. This book,
but
it's like old.
With a G.
Yeah, genes, like the genes, Genes. Yes. Because it's about the science the science about maternal impulses and how our brain is permanently rewired through pregnancy, and it's just so good. It's phenomenal. And the other 2 books are body books because I'm me, and I got I figured, you know what, summer is the time for swimsuits and better health, and a lot of people do things. And this one, it's a little bit extreme, but it's called The Phoenix Protocol. And it is by August Dunning.
Dry fasting.
It's dry fasting for rapid healing and a radical life extension. And so basically it talks about dry fasting and the length of time you do it and how you work up to it and how long you work up to, based off of it regenerates your cells, basically. It's hard to do. And I read that book cover to cover very quickly when we got it like 4 years ago. It's a super easy read, but it's a really, really cool book about extending your life. And the other one is The 4-Hour Body by Timothy Ferriss, because who doesn't want to hack your body? Like, you eat super, like, you can bounce around this book too. It has workouts in it and movements and things, but you eat super strict for an entire week. And then 1 day a week, you eat whatever you want the entire day. And there's some part of it too where you do like 100 kettlebell swings before you eat. But we did this like 4 years ago, and I thought it was really cool. And so Timothy Ferriss he did the 4-hour work week, and then he decided to do the 4-hour body. So it has adult content in there as far as how to improve your life in a number of ways.
Got it.
So not recommended for teenagers necessarily, but it definitely is a really good one for just helping you understand how food affects your body and little ways to improve it.
All right. And what was your other one? You said you had another. Oh, that was your third one.
That was it. There's 2.
Right.
The Phoenix Protocol and 4-Hour Body.
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't want to go too crazy because I could talk about fiction all day long.
Oh, 100%. Amelia.
My turn. Okay. Yes. I've already mentioned these, so I'm just gonna say them again and add. Innocents Abroad. I think it's really good, like worldview. And how travel like affects how you see the world. It really does like change your perspective on things. And I think that book will change your perspective on a lot as well. Highly recommend that. Empty Mansions.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by that one.
It is really, really interesting. And about like wealth and distribution and like how it changes and affects people. Widow Cliquot. It's fun. It's like actually one of the more fun nonfiction books I've ever read. And if you listen to it, it's like 6 hours. So it's like not a very long book.
Done.
And it's just like interesting to hear like the history of champagne.
Yeah.
And you can like go out and buy Cliquot champagne, like, and then drink it. Like, it's really cool. And it's the same thing that it was. So, Upstairs at the White House, also fun. That's like a nice beach read, I think, because it's just interesting.
Yeah.
And then I'm going like full nonfiction, which is like completely against everything I said. But you know, why not? I gifted this book to my husband a while ago, and I finally, because we both really like C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien. We love Lord of the Rings. We love everything C.S. Lewis has written. There's a book. It is called A Hobbit, a Wardrobe, and a Great War. How J.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis rediscovered faith, friendship, and heroism in the cataclysm of 1914 to 18. And I'll read you the synopsis that is written about it because it is far better than anything I could come up with. Like a little description of it. It examines the works of C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien, who fought against the tide of their peers and found virtue through their brothers in arms in the hand of God, who turned the evils of the Great War into good and literature. So
that's awesome. That gave me chills.
I know.
I have goosebumps.
It's a really, really good book.
That's awesome.
And it's not like super heavy. It's not like super light, but it's a good book. And then for my one fiction, I'm going to say The Girls of Flight City. It is about women in World War II who were like pilots, but because times were different, right?
Right.
They actually became pilot trainers in this like small town in Texas. The British Royal Air Force sent some of their pilots to like train to be like dogfighting pilots.
Yeah.
And the opposition pilots, because they couldn't spare men who were fighting and flying, were women.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And so it's about these women that were, and it's historical fiction. So this actually happened. There were women pilots, who like flew like crop dusters and whatever, right? They weren't women who can really fly planes, but they flew like crop dusters and stuff. But they trained and became fighter pilots, but never saw battle. They just trained other pilots because they couldn't spare men to train pilots because the men needed to go fly.
That sounds really cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And it's historical fiction. So there is a like, it's not written by the same person. There is a nonfiction about them, and I cannot remember the name. And it's interesting as well, but this is historical fiction. So I think she recommends a couple in the back of the book. I think she recommends a couple nonfiction books if it's like a topic that you're interested in.
Right.
But this really happened, and there is a museum in a small town in Texas about these women and the RAF pilots that came to train.
That sounds
with them.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
So that's my fiction recommendation. It is good. It has a little adulty content, but
thanks for listening to our talk on one of our favorite topics, books. For more content and recommendation, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Virtual Compound Podcast.
And be sure to hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening.
We're done.
We're done.